Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Unspoken Challenges, solving email marketing challenges that few talk about. Over the course of 6 monthly episodes, we're going to dive into those less spoken issues that you all face. In each of these information-rich events, our experts will share practical tips and advice based on real-world scenarios to help you optimize your email marketing and maximize customer lifetime value. I'm your host, Skip Federa, and I'm a fractional CMO, primarily in the working with SaaS companies that are going from startup to scale up. The benefit of a fractional CMO is that you get the marketing leader that you need to plan your growth while being able to put your budget against your marketing rather than your marketer. Now, we're going to be answering some questions during our panel discussion, so please get those into the Q&A button on the left-hand side of your screen. Actually, it's not Q&A, it's questions. Also, you might notice that there's a little yellow dot over there where the chat is. And so, use the chat for, things like chat. In fact, tell you what, we've had such a crazy weather this week here in the UK. Want everybody to go to the comments section now and tell us where you are and what the weather is out your window this very second. And we'll see if it changes between now and when I read some of those out. So, by the way, my weather, I'm in Southwest London, and right now it is very sunny. It's been a beautiful day. Yesterday, we had some just amazing downpours and hail and lightning. It was great. Now, before we go any further, I would be remiss if I didn't take time to thank our sponsors, without which none of this would be possible. So the Unspoken Challenges series is brought to you by Holistic Email Marketing and Actito, the world's #1 independent customer activation platform to connect, aggregate, analyze, and activate. Actito unlocks the power of your data. So, what do we got in the weather? Gray and cloudy here in East London from Russell. Phil says Oxfordshire, sunny, partially cloudy. West London is also sunny. And Janine, one of our speakers, is in deepest Oxfordshire, and 10 minutes ago it was hailing like crazy, but now the sun is out and it's beautiful. And one of our the holistic host is in North Somerset, sunny, a bit of wind. And Tracy's in Croydon. I love Croydon. Clear sky there. And Kath, as you'll see later, is on an island, and it's beautiful, sunny there as well. Now, for many of us, the thought of customer journey mapping fills us with dread. Right? It seems quite complicated, and it's hard to deal with the detail, and getting it wrong can lead to no end of hassle. A lot of ripping up concrete and to redo that. But don't worry, we're here today to guide you through it. First up, we've got Kath Pei, who's going to demystify the whole topic of customer journey mapping, and then we have Janine Hamilton from Actito, who's going to walk you through translating those customer journeys into effective marketing automation. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a panel discussion at the end where we will be answering your questions. Again, get those in the chat. Sorry, not in the chat, in the questions box. And we're going to have two other people join us today. We're going to have Tracy Ilunga, who's a CRM admin for the McArthurGlen Group, and my good friend, Samantha Visick, who is formerly the Director of Marketing Technology at Ralph Lauren. Right. Also, I've got quite an exciting thing for you today. One lucky participant in today's event is going to win a Kindle copy of Kath Pei's book, Holistic Email Marketing. So stick around to the end to be in for a shot of winning that wonderful prize. Now, first up, we've got Kath Pei, founder and CEO of Holistic Email Marketing. In addition to being a best-selling author, as we just talked about, and being a finalist and potential winner of the Business Book of the Year award, Kath was recently recognized as the 2021 EEC Thought Leader of the Year. Hey, Kath, how's it going?
It's good, thank you. I'm fine, thanks. Yes, it's all lovely and wonderful and everything here in Antigua until you have internet problems, as we've had before. So aside from that, brilliant.
Cool. Well, you've already got a comment in the chat about how great your book is. So we'll let people, ruminate on that. And in the meantime, I'm going to turn it over to you and for your presentation.
Oh, sorry, I've just put the wrong. I'm not going to present Janine's one. I don't think that would work out too well. I might, here we go. Let's select the right one this time. That's the one right there. Okay. So thank you all for coming. What I'm aiming to do with this particular presentation is really just sort of, I'm going to give you 3 common challenges that we come across when we're trying to actually be doing our mapping, but also going further then onto our marketing automation programs as well. So we're going to be talking about that, but we're also going to be looking at how to start mapping your journey, because that's always, I find that to be one of the biggest challenges that I've come across when consulting with my clients, and also with training students and everyone as well. So just a little bit about me. This is me, as you've just heard with Skip. I can probably just skip right through this. Skip. Because Skip just told everything to you. But if you want to get in contact with me, that's where you can find me. And then as he also suggested, mentioned, I've written a book, and that book is right here, and it has been nominated as a finalist, which is fantastic, in the book awards. And I'm going to be finding out next week whether I have actually won a prize there or not. So I'm very, very excited. And then finally, I just wanted to show you before we actually kick off. This is just a sample of our wonderful clients that we get to work with. So they really are wonderful. We tend to do very strategic things with them at Holistic Email Marketing, because we are a boutique consultancy and we very much focus on the strategy. And for me, strategy is exciting. So and I'm going to bring a little bit of that in today's presentation as well. So I just wanted to kick off with those 3 common challenges that I mentioned at the very beginning. Okay, so 3 common challenges to creating the customer journey maps and also creating effective automated programs. The funny thing is that when I got to think about them, they're all rooted in the same sort of problem. And that problem is that many of us email marketers actually we don't have a marketing degree. We didn't leave high school and say we're going to be email marketers. If you go and ask, and I've actually queried hundreds and hundreds of people about this, marketers about this, and most of them fall into email marketing of somehow, whether it's the design or through the technology, or through coding, or through marketing. But marketing isn't necessarily the main way, the route into email marketing. And that's a really, really interesting concept to understand, because as I said, all of these 3 challenges actually have this in common. The first one being fear of the known with customer journey mapping. The reason why it's unknown is because we've not been taught how to do it, right? So your boss comes to you and says, okay, we need to do this. And you're just there going, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I don't even know where to begin. I don't know how to do this. No one's ever taught me. Is there a course on this? All the rest of it. And this is where then we all know what it's like, being fearful. You kind of get frozen and you don't really know where to start. So I'm just really trying to help you along in this way as a good place to start. And I know Janine is going to be picking up from where I leave off, and she's going to be giving you more granular information for you to actually be actioning, very specific information. So from my perspective, it really is a case of us just needing to understand that don't be fearful, right? This is a good place to start. Jonathan, I'm going to ask you, because this is really taking a long time for it to for it to render for me. Just hang in there. I might be able to go with it, but we'll see. So essentially, where to start, right? The bottom line is we're talking about customer journey mapping. So we're not talking about platforms. We're not talking about, we are talking about data, because your customers are your data. They make up your data. But we want you to start thinking about them as being customers, right? So it all begins with starting to know your customer. And there's various ways that you can be doing that. Yes, looking at the data, looking at the website, and I'm going to be mentioning this in a minute as well. Looking at the website and identifying, sort of drop-off points and sort of, all of that wonderful, very, very fruitful information. But the bottom line is our aim is to try, in this exercise, is to try and identify as many journeys as possible. Now, the obvious ones are the easy place to start, right? Because they're the popular journeys. They're the ones that maybe they come from your PPC ad to your home page, or they might go from your PPC ad to a product page, right? These are the ones that you want to be going in and nailing first of all. Just going, and essentially you have to audit that journey. You have to go and experience it and understand what pages do they go, what are the kind of issues that they come across as well, because I'm a big fan of, whilst you're doing this, may as well make it as fruitful as possible, and also then start to think, how can we be optimizing this journey? But to be honest, actually mapping the customer journey is going to help you to be optimizing it, because you're going to be understanding where they are having issues, right? So start with the obvious. Start with the popular ones. You can always build upon them. And so Jonathan's now going to be presenting for me, which I think will make things a lot easier for me. So apologies this for everyone. Okay. There we go. But essentially what this is all about, is that the right slide, Jonathan, or is there one before that? Okay, fab. Okay, yeah, so start with the obvious. Yes, next slide, please. And as I said before, that includes reviewing all your data. So not just your email data, but very much your site data as well. It means looking at the bounce rates on those key pages within the journey. It means going, oh, wait, there's a big drop off here, a huge bounce rate. We have a problem here. And now what you need to have in your mind is that mindset of, how can we help? Next slide, please. Because that's what automated journeys are there to do. They're innately helpful, and they're there to help the customer along with their journey to achieve their objective, right? So we have our objective, but they also have theirs. So Douglas Van Prey in Unconscious Branding wrote, a general law of least effort applies to cognitive as well as physical exertion. The law asserts that if there are several ways of achieving the same goal, people will eventually gravitate to the least demanding course of action. Laziness is built deep into our nature. And this is what I was talking about with referring to, let's try and optimize at the same time. It makes sense. You can kill two birds with one stone. I hate that phrase, so I don't know why I said it, but that's how it is. So have that in your mind whilst you're doing this as well, because this is a fantastic opportunity for you to be addressing those kind of usability and customer experience issues. The previous session that we did to this event today was talking about the customer experience, and this is really just following on from that. So keep in mind, customer experience is key through all of this. Next slide, please. So, as I was saying before, your objective is to help your customer to achieve their goal. So one of the things you can do, and this is a great way to start, involve the whole team. Involve your immediate team, but go even beyond your team. Pull in some of the web team as well. Start to go, if you are just a purely acquisition team, pull in the retention team. Make sure that you have got a couple of voices from different teams as well, so that you can get a really holistic view of the customer. You know what you know, but you don't know what you don't, right? It's a very obvious saying, but that's very, very true. So start to sort of go, okay, this is it. We're going to pull in and we're going to do a fantastic big day. I like to do workshops with my clients, so you guys can run yourselves a workshop and pull everyone in, order lunch in. This is it. You're going to be brainstorming. You're going to be examining. You're going to be auditing. You're going to be asking lots and lots and lots of questions. All of the while, you're going to be doing this with the customer in your mind, right? So you're viewing the site not as a marketer, not as a brand advocate, but as the customer. Next slide, please. To do this, I mean, this is what everyone wants, right? As I've said so many times, email marketers are short on budget, short on resource, and short on time. And therefore, that means that often we are here looking for a silver bullet. Is there a fantastic tool that we can use? Is there something that will basically do it for me? Wouldn't that be awesome? Just sort of run it on your website, blah, 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 out it spits. Here's your customer journey. And who knows, in the future that may happen. You tech guys, this is a good way to go. But for the now, there is nothing that I personally am aware of. So it's still, and also from me, from a marketer's perspective, I still want to go in and do all the grunt work as well. I still want to understand and for myself and find out all of their challenges and really start to think from a strategic perspective how we can be helping them. So use a combination of tools. It could be, in that workshop, you could have the sticky notepads. You could be using big whiteboards or, those white sheets that you stick on the wall. I use them a lot. You can also then later on, you can actually be using some software, say Lucid Charts or something similar to actually be doing that final mapping of the journey. But I just wanted to stress that I don't believe that the actual mapping of the journey is the place to start. It's the place where you'll finish this particular exercise, but it's not where you'll be starting. So you've still got to do a lot of exploration. You've still got to do a lot of research and really understanding about your customers and their needs and what's working for them within that journey at the moment and what isn't working for them. So next slide, please. This is fantastic. So I've just got a comment here. I love a real roll of brown paper. You can just keep going. Love that. Yes. And then just use your phone, take photos and everything like that. Share it with the team, then keep getting feedback. So this is one of the exercises that I do during a workshop for customer journey mapping. And I tend to break it down into stages. So here is just an example of an acquisition stage. And this is the kind of process that we go through. So within the acquisition stage, there's often four components, four areas within it: discover, compare, consider, purchase. Okay, so what we're looking at here then is, and then within those four, I've broken it down to goals, touch points, and programs. Now, this is interesting. The goals is actually the customer goals. It's not your goals. It's the customer goals. Remember, because we're coming from the customer perspective. And so you can see here just, and this is actually real findings from the brainstorm that we had with the session that we had with one of my clients. So we're looking at their goals. What is it they want to be doing at the discover stage? What do they want to be actually achieving, and what's their goal at the comparison stage, at the consideration stage, and then at the purchase stage? Okay, then we want to go through that and map that then to touch points that we see are available on the website. So we can see, with the discover, well, they may actually browse abandon. Remember I was saying to you about those, the drop-off points? So that's when they're abandoning there. How can we be helping them? And I think the whole premise of this exercise at this point in time is actually for you to be asking yourself continually, how can we help them? How can we help them? How can we help them? That's it. This is the whole purpose. But it's going to give you some obvious touch points. And again, it can be far more extensive than this. Depends on how much time you've got, who's involved and everything like that. You may want to do it if it's a huge team. You may want to break it up into multiple workshop sessions with the different teams and get their unique insights into each of these. And then what makes it really easy for you is then and I love this, and I'm going to talk about this in the next step, in the next challenge as well. If you start at the right place, do you know what? It makes it so much easier because things just lead themselves into the solution. If you start with what is it they want, what are their goals, and then what are the touch points that they're going to come across or that's going to happen, right, in response to their, in that journey, in that particular, discovery part of their acquisition stage, then you're going to then naturally come across, well, we could be doing a browse abandonment program. Okay, well, that's an easy one. Maybe we want to be doing a retargeting popover on the product page, or we could do editorial notifications, an exit popover, or a subscribe, arrival popover for repeat unknowns, and all the rest of it. And this is when a lot of your tactics are actually coming out. So then the next stage is going to be to actually map this out, all of this information, but also the journey. And I'll show you an example of that in the next point. Next slide, please. So I thought now I'd just pause and we'd look at challenge number 2. And challenge number 2 picks up from the customer mapping. Because now, just say you've actually done your mapping, you've actually identified your automated programs, and everything is wonderful. That's the way to do it. But more often than not, most of us actually start here. We forget about the customer journey. We forget about actually mapping it. We forget about actually really identifying their objections, their needs, their wants, their goals, and everything. And we just read an article and we say, oh, we haven't got that program, let's go and do that. And because you're starting at a tactic, then that is problematic. Next slide, please. So these are the kind of tactics or automated programs that you'll probably come up with, right? Which is great. This is the kind of thing that you're wanting. This is the end result that you are actually wanting. But this is not where you should be starting. Because if you were just to literally start at this point, so forget everything that I've said beforehand, but this is the list of programs we're going to implement this year. What you're doing is you're implementing them almost on an ad hocly basis. So you're not looking at the bigger picture. You're not really keeping the customer in mind. You will on an individual basis, but there could be a disconnect there. So what I'm saying is that start at the right place and you work your way down to this point. And this then is the fruit of all your endeavors, right? And of course, once you implement them, that's the real fruit. But this is I find more often than not, this is the starting point. And that's why today's session, I think, is really, really key, and hopefully will be a bit of an eye-opener or a wake-up call for some brand marketers to actually understand that maybe they've been starting at the wrong place, and maybe they need to be starting at the right place. And then actually, and from that point too, you're not going to just be implementing what you think could work or what you have read will most likely work. You're actually going to be implementing programs that are addressing your customers' challenges, your customers' barrier to conversion, your customers' customer journey. And that's what makes them so incredibly powerful. Next slide, please. So here, this is what we were talking about. This is the end result, or could very well be a snapshot of an end result of one of your customer journeys, right? So you're literally recording, where do they come from, what do they do, what pages will they go through, and everything. Of course, we understand people are unique and they won't always start and finish and do exactly the same thing as everyone else. But the key thing here is just to have the general, the most popular routes actually covered. And then, like I said, you can always build upon it, and you can always make sure that you're actually catering for all those that tend to do something that's not of the norm as such. But this is the mapping of the journey. And within that, you will actually have, a browse abandonment program, slotted in here, or you might have a pop over here, or you might have a second purchase program here, and you might have a win back and all the rest of it, okay? But I want you to go the next step. Next slide, please. And you need to be mapping out the programs then in detail. And this again is just that snapshot of the overarching. How do all the programs interconnect? How do they all relate to each other? If someone's on this program, what's going to happen? Are they also going to go on this program? Again, you're going to go and map back to that journey and say, well, because we understand the journey, this is actually, we may have to forego on this one, or it's okay for them to have both because they don't conflict, all the rest of it. So if you were to have done this without actually fully knowing the journey, it would be a lot more difficult for you to do. So make sure you're mapping out the programs. And then, of course, within mapping out the programs, without going into too much detail, you want to be doing the wireframes, the objective for each and every single email within the series of that particular automated program, writing the copy and everything, and then coding, designing, coding, and implementing. And this brings us to the final challenge. Next slide, please. Failure to optimize your automated programs. So these were the three big challenges that I have come across in all of my years of teaching and consulting and everything that I find happens with the majority, shall we say, the majority of the brands that I've worked with. So this is a problem. We're going to actually have a whole session. It's such a big problem. We're having a whole event on this further down the track. So please stay tuned and sign up for that if you're wanting to know more about it, because I'm not going to give you everything. I don't have enough time today. But I'm going to give you 3 possible ways that you could be doing this. Okay, next slide, please. The first way is to actually do an individual A/B split tests of different emails within your automations, right? So that means that maybe email 1 may have a A/B split test on it, but email 2 may not, but email 3 may, right? So that's one way of doing it. The next way, and I find that to be honest, I've never recommended it. I have had clients that have done it, and this is one of them, but I've never actually recommended that way. My preferred method is, the next slide, please, is actually to be doing A/B testing of complete streams. This really, really makes testing an absolute dream, because one of the things with, as we've said, right, automated programs, they deliver the return on investment, they probably are your best functioning, best converting emails within your email marketing program if you've done them right. And even if you haven't done them as amazing as you could, there's still opportunity for you to be refining and continually optimizing them. And that's what this approach does. So you write your hypothesis, and your hypothesis will be, you know, version A versus version B, and you've actually written, we believe that, you know, by offering benefits over savings, we're going to get a higher uplift in conversions. Okay, so you could be doing something like that, and therefore every single email in stream A then is going to be supporting the benefits, and every single email within stream B is going to be supporting savings. And then by the end of that, once you've gone, because what you do is you build that in, you build those 2 streams in, so they're 2 permanent streams within your automation program. And then once you have a winner, what you do is you replace the loser with a new stream, with following a new hypothesis. And that's what we mean by continually optimizing your program. Now, there is a third way, and the third way is simply, what you need to do here is, say if you've got a huge segment, and that segment, and often I will do this with the inactive segment, because that's often the really ginormous segment, okay? And it's normally by the time they go, oh my goodness, we've got a huge segment of inactives and we don't know what to do with them. And of course, it's incredibly, it could be also very dangerous in some ways to actually be just sending out a whole campaign to them because of inactives, the nature of them. Some might be different addresses, so they might bounce, hard bounce, all the rest of it. And you might have deliverability problems. But what you could, if you have got a recently inactive segment within that larger segment, then you could be doing some A/B split testing as manual campaigns. So regular campaign A/B split testing a hypothesis, and that the hypothesis will be maybe this offer against this offer, this copy against this copy, these benefits versus these benefits. So you're trying to work out what, which, offer, or which copy, or which, benefits, whatever, is going to actually be reactivating them. On that basis, then you end up doing that. You've done that multiple times with the more recent inactives. You're assured, and you've got a statistically confident result. Then you can actually, that's your beginning point for, say, the option B that we're looking at here. So that could now be your control, and you're going to be then creating a hypothesis and creating a new stream for a new hypothesis in order to be continually optimizing those automated, that automated win back program. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. Next slide, please. So the takeaways for this particular session is, don't be overwhelmed, right? You have to start. I know that starting something is difficult, and a good place to start is with a lot of other people and their ideas and their thoughts. So just do that, right? Takes a lot of burden off you, shares it upon everyone else, and then it will give you a lot of ideas and give you sort of the zest for now going through and continuing this particular project. Think from the customer's perspective. Always ask yourself, how can you help them? Start with strategy, not with tactics. Okay, start at the right place, and then continually optimize your automated programs in order for you to, continually be getting and improving your return on investment and the conversions that you're getting from them. So that's it from me, and I know Janine has got another session after this, which is going to, as I said, really pick up and talk to things more granularly. So I'll see you all at the panel.
Hey, Kath, can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Okay, we can hear you.
Excellent. So yeah, I've got that page unresponsive error again, but that's okay. We will crack on. We know how to deal with this now. Kath, really interesting point you made about how many people don't have a marketing degree from university. I mean, my undergraduate degree was in politics, and then I did do an MBA, but we weren't allowed to specialize. So I've got a general MBA or a general business MBA. We only were allowed to take a couple of marketing classes during that. So folks in the chat, next chat, let's tell me what is your degree in, if you have a degree. And if you don't have a degree, that's cool too, because I know lots of people don't. And also, I thought you'd all like to know, quick little weather update from here in Southwest London. It's clouded over, it's started to rain, and the wind has picked up quite a bit. So with that, I'm going to ask Jonathan to end the session. Okay, and we're back. Our second presentation today comes from Janine Hamilton, Senior Strategic Consultant at Actito. And throughout her 11 plus years in email marketing, Janine has led specialist strategic and operational teams serving big brands, big brands and small brands, or brands big and small, in the retail, travel, fashion, gaming, and insurance sectors. So Janine, two questions for you quickly before we let you kick off.
Okay.
Looking out the window over your shoulder, it looks like the weather's still good there in Reading or Oxfordshire, wherever you are.
Yeah, little clouds coming this way too. If you could keep it with you, that would be lovely.
I'll do what I can. And what was your university degree in?
My university degree was called Media Lab Arts. So I learned how to make computer games and other things that it turned out I wasn't very good at, to be honest. So
that's how cool is that? How cool is that?
It was pretty cool nonetheless. Yeah.
We've got some interesting answers.
Yeah, it's a super talented bunch.
My favorite is psychology with a minor in religion and philosophy.
Very impressive, Rowan.
How you get into marketing off of that? There's actually, I know the story. That's a long one, way too long we have for it now. Journalism and poli-sci, nice. Anyway, Janine, over to you.
Thank you. Let me just find that slide for you. Okay, so hopefully you can see my slides. If you can't, shout in the chat. But as Kath said, I'm just going to kind of carry on exploring this process of customer journey mapping and translating that into the marketing automation that you put in place. Because what we've done so far really is we've mapped out those journeys, we've reviewed our analytics, we put a ton of thought into actually really understanding what the customer experience is. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we take those insights that we now have and translate them into some marketing automation and programs that are really going to engage your customers. So for anyone who is new to this series, I'm Janine Hamilton, and I am Senior Strategic Consultant and Head of Marketing Delivery, a little bit of a mouthful, at Actito. And the phrase is a bit too generic, really. I think it covers far too much of what technology is available, but you'll recognise us as a marketing automation and messaging platform. And what we really focus on is just to enable you to unify that marketing data, the stuff that you can really use to talk to your customers and unlock ways to activate and engage and hopefully convert in most cases as well. So if you would like to find out a little bit more about us or me, then there's a link there. Feel free to book a virtual coffee with me. I'd love to have a chance to chat to some people I don't see every day, given the last year that we've all had. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to break this down into kind of 3 areas for me. The first part is about finding the moments. And Kath talked a little bit about this, but for me, this is the big moment where everything kind of starts falling to place, and all of that effort that you've put into thinking and understanding your journeys from the customer point of view kind of starts to translate into what you're going to do next. So it's identifying those opportunities really, and how you're going to respond to those parts of the journey and kind of draw your customers into a conversation. And it does start with that part of translating that customer journey, finding the moments, the actions within it. You'll have identified the milestones, but you're looking for the interruptions, the decision-making points along the way. And it will be way more than your abandoned cart, I'm sure. When you do it, sit down and do this exercise, there'll be scores of moments across your website that impact the experience and impact your conversion. So things like when do you want to confirm something? When do you want to re-engage someone who's stopped kind of midway through? When do you need to encourage someone to move to the next stage? Say that they've got to get to that, you've got to encourage them to move those products from the wish list into a cart. Or you're looking for someone who, maybe has abandoned their basket halfway through, or perhaps abandoned, and stopped midway through filling in the preference center. So you're looking for these moments through this journey that you want to respond to. And that's really where your marketing automation is going to come in. It's responding. But what you're going to have to do to get there is to be listening for the interactions. And the interactions are all of those kind of indicators that someone has done something that you care about, and you'll want the systems to talk to it. And for me, I'm speaking to clients that I've spoken to over the time, this can sometimes feel like the biggest obstacle to them. It's that moment when you feel like you're going to have to go for involving IT teams in some lengthy project or securing it. So we want to make sure that you've had a solution in place that gives you an easy framework and makes this much more accessible to you, because this is where the fun at. So you want to look for a few different ways to listen out for this. We've got goals, cookies, and where cookies are going is probably a whole conversation in its own right. I'm not going to touch on it too much, but you definitely want to make sure that you're in a situation where you've got some great APIs to use. And it doesn't have to be onerous anymore. It doesn't have to be a lengthy discussion with the IT team. There's some great integration apps that are now available that you can use to connect up those systems yourself. They're much more plug and play than they were before. And I'm a big fan, certainly with teams and people that come into my team, of just demystifying APIs a little bit. So I don't know whether anyone here is in the boat that I was when I started, where I just didn't really realize how much I was making an API call. They were something that had some mystique for me. So I've just popped this link on the bottom. So when you get the slides and you see the presentation, have a go. You just click it, grab the URL, and you've got NASA's photo of the day. So if you don't think you've ever made an API call, this is your first one, go for it. But APIs aren't the only things that we've got available now to use. Webhooks are a fantastic addition to that. It's a simple connection. It's going to be running all the time and updating. So think about drawing on these different tools to make sure that you're listening out for those moments. But also, you may have something that's even easier and closer to home, potentially. Don't forget about form completions or opens and clicks on emails preceding, or other campaigns that you've got going on. They're all great sources of these moments that you can respond to. And I think the next part for me is about getting smart with that data. And think about it in terms of, how do you maximize what you do have available to you? What's there today? And for me, a little bit like Kath, that starts with, where's your focus? So we often think about these kind of stages as well in terms of the overall life journey, these kind of big buckets in the customer journey. Where's your focus going to be for the next 3 months? Where are you going to see the rewards for that? And the reason for this is that often you'll find that there's some shared data sources there. There's some shared challenges within that particular phase of the journey. So you're going to be able to build more quickly by just narrowing your focus a little bit, rather than going necessarily for the quickest wins in different areas. And I've always been a bit of a fan of a list. No one will lie to you. But if you've already spent a lot of time thinking about the customer journey and automations, you will have a long list. I am absolutely sure. Looking at the fantastic array of degrees and other things that you guys have done, there's going to be some really amazingly diverse thinking when you go through this customer journey experience. You've got that long list. Prioritizing it is going to be a really important phase. And having come into a world with a lot of developers and software developers, really embracing a kind of the agile approach to doing this and creating a lovely backlog is fantastic for me. It's really helps you break down these great ideas that you have into things you can get off the ground quickly. And that's the big thing for me about it, is prioritizing these things that are on the table in terms of how easy they're going to do, how much impact they're going to have, but also taking the time to break those down into things that you can start quickly and finish quickly, because you will have an idea of what the right answer is, but absolutely one of the best things at your disposal is the ability to test and to learn. So putting something in place and growing and developing that. And you're also, through this, going to want to identify the smart data from that same point. I've certainly spoken with people in the past who have got a bit stuck because they've tried to grab everything from the outset. They want all the things that they think they're going to want in the future, rather than taking the things that they know are going to have value today and doing that learning, doing that iterating and increasing that richness over time. So it's like this little Lego family, that picture might start quite simple to start with in terms of what you know about that person, or how that moment was experienced for them. What was the event? where were they? You know that they've abandoned a basket, and you know there was a few products in it, through to growing that picture out. You know what they abandoned, where they abandoned, through to having a really complete picture of them. It's going to take time. It's going to be an evolution, but don't let going for that kind of perfect view get in the way of you starting this process and discovering the real value for you and the real return on your investments. So the last part really in the three things for me to think about as you go through this kind of transformation between mapping that customer journey, thinking about that customer experience, and having some great automation and programs running, is about speaking to the need. You know, Kath used the phrase a few times about how can I help? What's going to help them? And I think there are a lot of ways on a technical side to think about that beyond just perhaps the copy and the imagery. There's things like the frequency. You know, is it real time that you need it? No, it's right time that you need it. I don't want to be waiting 4 hours for my order confirmation. I want to know that I've got that and it's coming, but I wouldn't necessarily want an email in that instant when I leave a website I've been browsing. I don't want to be kind of jumped on in that way. So not everything in your program is going to need to be real time, but you should definitely be aiming for right time. And you need to make sure that you're thinking about, you know, how quickly do I need to be there? You know, what's the right speed of that response? And how long do I give people to respond to that before I want to go back to them and say, hey, you know, will you be returning? And Kath touched on it with her third point around optimizing as well. You definitely want to make sure your solution is going to give you the flexibility to test these things and to discover that right answer and the right level of responsiveness to put in place. And the timing of things, it is, in a way, it's part of personalization, of that big picture. And personalization is another one of the topics that we'll cover in one of the future ones. So I'm not going to dwell on it here too much, but channel is also a kind of form of personalization. People have obviously given you consent for particular channels. They're interested in receiving SMS or not. So they've already given you an indication of how they want to be engaged for you. But you can also think about that in terms of what's going to be the most useful channel to them in this moment, at this point in their journey. So depending on the context and the customer segment, maybe choose which route you take them to. Is it a quick update where it's going to be really great in SMS because they're instantly going to see it, everyone checks on it, and they will have that code or that reference? Or is it something like push where it's really contextual, or, you know, local to where they are at that particular moment? Maybe it's mobile wallet, where it's useful because they've got easy access to those coupons or the passes that you want them to have. And obviously you've got email as kind of the powerhouse, the one that you can go to for all of these. So think about how does the channel respond best to that point in the journey? What's the context that they're in, and where would they be most likely to engage with you? But cost comes into it as well, as we know. You know, we're not, email tends to be quite light on budget, unfortunately, even though we drive such fantastic ROIs. And I think that hopefully the tide of that is changing slightly. But what you can also do is use that kind of logic and put those fallbacks in place. You know, maybe try the less expensive channel first and fall back to sending an SMS. So there's lots of ways to layer up how you use the channels to play this out really well and to give a really great customer experience. And then my last point about it is really you're going to be introducing all of this fantastic engagement-driven activity into your program. And Kath made a really good point about understanding the relationships between those programs and making sure Have you thought about how they interact with each other? One of the things I've definitely found is you do need to make sure that you are thinking about how do you maintain some degree of control over that customer experience, capping the maximum. How do we make sure that they don't fall into all of these segments and get all of this stuff suddenly in them just because they're being a great customer and doing the things that we want them to do? But also be mindful about the minimum as well. If you go too far into just providing the marketing automation and you don't have enough left in your program, you can do things that I've seen some clients do from big audits in the past that we've helped them transform, of actually ending up not having the majority of their customers receiving a good amount of communication from them to keep them engaged. They were kind of catering for the top tier of their customers, the people that were actively on their site on a regular basis, and kind of forgotten about the everyday person who maybe, is there a little less often, or, stops a little more often through that process. So think about the pressure that you're applying through that as well. And then if you have thought about those moments, you've thought about how do you approach that in an agile way and introduce the data that you need and the flows that you need when you need them, and think about how you're helpful with your message, with your choice of channel, with your choice of timing. And hopefully your reward will be not only happy customers, but also some happy ROI and happy marketers. So I hope that was useful. It was lovely to have a chance to come and talk to you guys about this. If you'd like to find me, I'm on LinkedIn, and obviously we can book coffee anytime. I can see Skip arriving.
I'm arriving, and I want to I want to book a coffee.
Oh, please!
Oh,
I'd love to book a coffee.
We can do that.
And anything to talk to someone else.
Does anybody else?
Is there anyone out there?
So that was thank you. That was very, very useful. I got a lot out of that. A couple of interesting things, not specifically related to your presentation, but you put in the comments during Kath's presentation that your favorite tool for customer journey mapping is a roll of brown paper that you can just keep rolling.
Yeah.
And I worked with a client once that was trying to get to grips with all of their automated emails, and they didn't have even a single system. It was a financial services company, so emails were popping out of all kinds of different systems.
Yeah.
And so we took over a huge conference room, moved all the furniture out of it, and laid out the journey, printed the emails out on paper, and laid the journey out on the floor. And at one point, the marketing director, CMO, walked by and he's like, "What are we doing in here?" And we said, "These are all of your emails that are going out to one customer." Mm-hmm. And
I bet it looked like a complete smorgasbord as well in terms of visuals. Certainly when I've done it with people in the past, like brand just thrown out left, right, and center.
Tone of voice.
Yeah.
Everything. It was all over the place. It was a fun project to work on.
I love the brown paper because you can roll it up at the end of the day, stick it there, and bring it out whenever you need. You can just come back to that experience and jump back in wherever you need to. Like
a giant scroll.
It works. It's really useful.
The other thought that I had when you were talking about is how much people use APIs and IT pushback. I saw a great tweet this morning. I'm not going to remember who it was from, but they were in a meeting and there was IT pushback, and the IT was like, "Well, what if you guys built it? How long would it take it for you guys to build it?" And she said, "Oh, we built it already, and it took about 3 days." And IT thought it was going to be some huge, big thing. Anyway, so let's move on to the panel, if that's all right. So I'm gonna actually, I now have full control. This is great. I love this. So I will see you on the stage in a second. With the rest of the panelists. Okay, and we're back. Excellent. So we've got joining us on the stage now two wonderful experts who are going to bring their practical view of the world to the discussion. First up, we've got Tracy Ilunga, head of CRM at McArthurGlen Group. Tracy is a true advocate of using platforms to have meaningful conversation with customers, but also making sure that those platforms are used to their full potential. Over the past 3 years, she's been instrumental in driving real change at McArthurGlen. I can't wait to hear about that. And she's also passionate about women in tech and equality. And our other panelist is Sam Visick, formerly the Director of Marketing Technology, Direct-to-Consumer, at Ralph Lauren. Sam has worked in direct marketing for over 19 years. And in fact, Sam and I worked together when I first moved here in 2000. And, you know, some things never change. Her ethos of the customer first makes her a dogmatic data enthusiast, and that is definitely true, and a champion of CDPs and data analysis. Most recently, her work has taken Ralph Lauren on a technical and data review, enabling them to generate a single customer view and enable the use of AI to drive customer messaging. So again, that'll be interesting to hear about. So welcome, everybody, to the panel. Kath, you're looking very clear. Can you hear us and everything's good?
Yeah, everything's good.
Fantastic. All right, so folks, don't forget, get your questions into the question panel over there on the, let's see, the right-hand side of the screen. I used to know my right from my left, but that's gone now. But while people are getting their questions in, Tracy and Sam, since you're new to our little group here, I'd like to start with the two of you and learn something from your practical experience. So Tracy, let's start with you. It's same questions for both you and Sam. What's your top tip when building out customer journeys? And then what's the biggest pitfall to watch out for?
So I will start with the top tip. So the first top tip will be a whiteboard. As Janine and Kath have been saying, whiteboard are the go-to solution. Like this, you'll have you'll start from nothing, and then in the bit by bit, you're going to start to build it up. And what is more important is to know what is the purpose of the campaign. Why are we doing that campaign? What tool do we have? Also, who are the right customer we want to target? Because we always think that targeting everybody with the same way, with the same type of tool is always the go-to solution, but it's not the case. We need to know when to talk, to what's the right time to talk, and make sure that we've got the right offer for all of this. And also look at how many touch points we will be contacting or targeting those customers.
Okay.
That's my tip.
What about the biggest pitfall to watch out for?
The biggest one, I will say, not seeing the customer journey from a customer perspective, but from a business perspective, because we always tend, when we start to look at mapping out journeys based on what resources, what do we have, what capabilities we have, rather than looking at exactly what does the customer have, how does he look at shopping. So for example, if you look at people who are, one example would be with us, we're looking at customers who are local or international customers who are going shopping. Their experience will be different. The type of offers or the type of offer they would like to have in a center or in a supermarket will be different. So we always need to make sure that we look at their point of view, the type of devices they're using, and then we can define how we want to map out that customer journey.
Excellent. Excellent. And Sam, top tip?
Top tip, well, Rome wasn't built in a day. So I think, Janine and Kath mentioned all these great things of looking at all the data, bringing it in, looking at the journeys. And so I'd say, you can't do it all in one go. Clearly, which is going to be your best journey, and go for it. Do at least start with one journey and build up your journeys. And you can, one journey becomes a complex journey as you build it up, and you'll have another journey. So if you need a welcome journey, look at that, start it simplistically, but at least start one. And then define it more and more. And I know Kath was talking about the A/B testing, and that rolls out. And so just start a journey. And then, in 18 months' time, you'll suddenly have this complex mapping of multiple personalized journeys to people. So that would be my top tip. Biggest pitfall, I think, again, a lot of people have touched on the customer experience. And that's when you're actually, I look at the retail side, I looked at the online side, and also as a MarTech, lots of different platforms are coming in. Every platform that is coming in is a touch point to a customer. And so again, when you're looking at that customer experience, how's that going to affect them? So if I've walked into the store and I've signed up to an SMS, am I an existing customer or not an existing? Am I already signed up for emails? What else am I signed up for? So again, it's thinking about those customer experiences when you're coming to different places. For example, Facebook. If you're acquiring customers through Facebook, is it Facebook or is it Facebook games? And they're different people. And so it's just thinking about those customer experience and how you're going to push those into your journeys as well.
Okay, excellent. It's a bit of a, it's like couch to 5K, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
First, you got to get off the couch.
Yeah. Don't be overwhelmed. Just start somewhere, because somewhere is better than nowhere.
Exactly. Janine, Kath, do either of you want to chip in with your top tip or biggest pitfall?
I think for me, it's Kath talked in her, the first part of her session about involving other people in the process as well. And I think for me, one of the things to be mindful about in this process is we often lean to the things that we can solve ourselves as email marketers. And this is certainly the experience that I had when I started out and was brand side. We're kind of left to our own devices a little bit, and we're not necessarily have control over the end-to-end experience of the customer. But actually, some of the things that might be getting in the way of our own success or of the customer journey are actually things that involve other people, that involve other stages on the website, etc. So we often take it upon ourselves to try and fix everything, but actually bringing more people into the conversation and the journey allows a chance to think a little bit more holistically as a group about how we can improve that whole experience.
Okay, Kath? You're on mute, Kath.
Stop off mute. There we go.
There you go.
I totally agree with what everyone has said. I mean, they're absolutely brilliant points and very, very valid. And just piggybacking off what Janine was just saying then, we all know that email is a fantastic channel and it's got wonderful return on investment and everything, but at the same time, we are incredibly dependent upon the other channels. We are not an island. We do not stand alone and function alone. And so, that is why it really, really makes sense that if you're doing that audit, particularly of the website, and you see that there is some, a disconnect or there is a huge journey, then that's why bringing those people in can really, really help. So I probably would agree that that's probably one of the best ones. And I really love what Tracy was saying too, because, and I didn't say it, but I actually had it in my notes originally, to be looking at if you have personas or if you understand if you've got particular segments in your audience. So if you've got mature shoppers versus, young millennial shoppers, they're probably going to be doing it differently. Millennial will be doing it starting on the phone. Mature will probably be doing it from a desktop. All of those kind of things need to be factored in as well. But, as Sam mentioned, don't get overwhelmed with it. The best place to start is with your biggest audience, right? And do that one, and then go to the next one, and so on and so on. Because all of this is going to be giving you learnings and making each journey that you do so much easier, because you're getting more confident and you're getting more equipped with the process, and also you're going to have more insights on your customers as well. So yeah, just do it. Same as I always say with marketing automation programs. If you've got a list of 5 to do, don't start them all at once. Work on one. Even if you just get one email out of a series of 5 emails in the welcome program or something. Then you've made a start, and then build upon the second, and then the third, and then the fourth. Always try and do it so that it's actually, it's, I don't want to say easy, because it's not always easy, but it's easier for you to do it, therefore more manageable, and you are going to do a better job with doing it, rather than being totally overwhelmed. I've got to get this done. We've got this deadline, and then it never actually launches because everyone is just, too many questions. Just get one out there. And then once you're doing that, then you can be refining, learning from it, and optimizing as you go along.
Yeah, I remember a real conversation. Sorry, Skip. I remember really clearly a conversation I had with a client not that long ago, and they were trying to book in when they were going to sit down as a big team and do the customer journey mapping exercise. And they were like, well, I don't think we can get it this month. It'll probably be next month, maybe the start of. And the simple question back to them was, well, what do you think are going to be the 5 most valuable things for you to do to start with? And they really quickly reeled off a very eloquent list of 5 things and why they would be valuable to their customers. And it's like, let's just start with that then. We'll get to that big journey mapping bit. We know where we're going. We know what we want to do. Let's make a start now, because you're going to feel so much more empowered by doing that as well.
Yeah, my mantra has always been think big, start small, and scale quickly. So, and sometimes I fucking fail fast at the end of that. But Tracy and Sam, you both have over the past few years gone, driven your organizations through a transformation. And was there a pushback? I mean, is this something that, the stats are overwhelming, right? 86% of consumers are willing to pay more for a great customer experience. 49% of buyers have made an impulse purchase because of a more personalized experience. So it seems to me that marketers can't really not go through this effort. But obviously, I'm sure the finance people and the IT people and others push back. So did either of you get much pushback when you launched this kind of effort?
Yes, we always have pushback from different teams because of different objectives, unfortunately. I would say the main pushback will be in terms of when we look at legal, because we need to make sure that if we are capturing data, for example, we are capturing the right amount of data and the right type of data. And then when we look at capabilities, we need to make sure that if we have the current capabilities, we are using it to this fully. Or if we're looking to acquire new capability, how will this new capability support what we already have in-house, but also support to drive the best footfall, for example, for us. And in terms of pushback, other type of pushback is we always going to have people who will be a bit scared of change, because that will be a new. Designing a customer journey is like looking at what was done already, making sure that identifying where there is the crack and fixing those cracks. So some people will always be scared of something new, and we will be replaced by something, I would say, better. So definitely yes.
Sam, what about you?
Well, no, I'd agree. In a number of retailers I've worked with, often is, we don't want to mass mail the whole lot, and the reason being is this, and they're just like, not mailing everybody this week, and you're just like, yeah, but the reason is X, Y, and Z. So it's always a hard battle until you've done the first test and can actually prove that actually it's beneficial to the business. Once you can start doing that proof, then the confidence starts growing with you. So it's that first. So the easy thing to then is to do a small test. And so just to win confidence with a small audience that's not going to affect potentially the bottom line, really.
So, and would that be a small audience that's would that be like would you pick off a specialist audience that might not have a bottom line impact, or would you just try to go with a small test group of the main audience?
No, I'd go with a test group of whichever audience we need to then roll it out to, because otherwise it's a sort of futile test. I can't prove it to somebody if I don't do it with the who I want to market out to.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I like that sort of, test and learn approach. Prove it works. I was working with a client not too long ago, kind of it's a B2C client, and they had for a long time, discounting was their thing, and they'd taught their customer base to wait for the discount, and now they'd gotten to a point where they couldn't discount any further because they'd wiped out all their margins. So they were basically selling at cost. And so the project was, okay, how do we sort of reverse that, and how do we get them to unlearn that? But the pushback was exactly that. Wait, what do you mean we're not going to send? It was an American client. It's the 4th of July. We always do the 4th of July offer. We're not going to do the 4th of July offer. No, we're not going to do the 4th of July offer. But we won't make any money. Well, you're not making any money now, so you won't have lost anything.
An easy one we had it with another client, with a long time ago, was just lapsed customers. It's just like, stop mailing them for a few weeks and see what happens. They're lapsed. They're really not doing it. They're not opening. They're not doing anything. And even that was a hard argument. But actually, you regenerated a lot of audience because they suddenly went, "Oh, what's in my inbox? I'm excited again."
Yeah, same with us. Lapsed customer are a big topic on why shouldn't we send them an email like everybody else, where we explain basically that they are lapsed with either the channel is not right, or either the type of communication they're receiving, the type of content they're receiving is not right. So why don't we try another direction? Why don't we try to send less email to them, for example, and that as well is still a bit challenging.
Yeah,
it sounds counterintuitive, and somebody mentioned Della in the chat. If we had Della here, he'd be flapping all over. So this leads me in a couple of different directions. I guess the next question is, again, Tracy and Sam, starting with you. Were you starting when you started this journey? Were you starting with a clean sheet of paper, or were there already automation programs in place that needed to be analyzed, adjusted, ripped up, torn apart? Was there a customer journey map in place, or did you have to go out and create one? I guess, and I'm going to pass this question on to Janine and Kath after you answer, but I guess, what do you do if you inherit something? So Sam and Tracy, did either of you inherit something, and how did you unpick what you inherited to get to where you are now? Sam, why don't you go first?
Okay. Well, no, I didn't inherit it. My role was the marketing technology role. So my role was to actually set up a data lake, to do the data analysis, and then to start looking at testing journeys for the customers across all platforms. So it was very much a proof of concept stage within Europe that then rolled out across the globe. So that's kind of how I started. So it was ours was, we want to do this. Let's prove that it's going to work, and roll out that way.
Cool. Tracy, what about you?
We inherited. So we did look at what was already live, and we review it to show to the business that what is currently live is not working. So we used, as Sam mentioned, we use a control group. So to say those people are people who will never receive anything. The other part of customer are the one who will still receive what we are currently delivering, and another part are the one who will receive the new customer journey based on all the new content, new touch point, and new channel as well.
That's great. I love it when a business, and I'm sure there's lots of stories about the arguments that went on. What do you mean we're not going to send stuff to some people? What are you talking about? So Janine and Kath, obviously, people bring you both in to either help get them started or to fix what they have. Mm-hmm. Let's start with the fix what they have. I mean, what do you do? I've got this marketing automation. What's the next step?
for me, the first part is to actually experience it for yourself. I think it's very easy to sit back and look at just the pure numbers, and that's an important part, looking at your data and the analytics and what's happening, but actually go in and go through that experience if you can, place that order, get it through. And it's quite revealing sometimes that actually, as I said before, sometimes we think it's all about what we are doing, and actually it's not. It's my second purchase program is not working because when I dig into it, people are having a really bad delivery experience. That's outside of my control, but I need to help develop that area before I'm going to be able to improve this. So I think just living the experience is probably where I'd start.
Kath?
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's always the first step of what we do when we do an audit. So you need to audit. And basically that goes through experiencing it. And I'll give you an example. Currently working with a client, and it's a job search, right? So I've signed up and everything like this, and I've put in that I want marketing manager jobs. And so I get in my email, subject line, something about nursing jobs or something, hospitality. It was hospitality jobs. Within the body of the email were the marketing jobs that I've requested, but the subject line had absolutely nothing. Now, unless you actually go and sign up and start to experience it, you wouldn't believe it, would you? So, because they're going, we've got a conversion problem. It's like, well, yeah, right there. That's one reason. So things like that, it's a great place to start. It will give you lots of quick wins and insights. And also remember, because we're looking at it from the customer perspective, so you in this case are actually the customer. And then you need to go through and look at everything else, like what Janine was saying. So you're looking at the data, the creative, the copy, what testing have they done, and put all of that together, and then you pull your report and say, okay, well, we actually think this is underperforming, and look at it that way. And maybe it's the timing factor, maybe the copy is okay, maybe the offer's okay, but maybe the touch point needs to be refined as well. So there's a lot of different things, but definitely you have to audit your existing ones, particularly if you're going to be adding more to it. Because remember what I was saying in my presentation, at this point now, you are actually starting at the tactics because they're in existence. So you have to make sure because when you're doing your audit, you're still going, okay, how are these going to fit in with all of the new ones? Because we've done our customer journey plan. How are they going to fit in all together and connect and still give that lovely customer experience to the customers?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think too often what ends up happening is to the point you made in your presentation, Kath, people just start with the automation. They don't think about the journey. And then the automations just sort of build up organically, kind of based on, presentations they hear from people like you and I, really, and we go in, I can tell you, I've many times I've presented the top 5 marketing automation programs for e-com, right? And so they just build those. They don't think about how the journey impacts that. So we've got a couple of questions in the Q&A. The first one, Tracy, comes from a colleague of yours. I think I'm probably going to mispronounce this, but Sanjit?
Yeah.
So if this question is throwing you under a bus, feel free not to answer. In fact, what I'll do is I'll let everybody else answer first, and you can be like, yeah, what they said. How important is company culture in shaping plans and directions? Sam, do you want to start with that?
Me? I mean, it's very important in shaping the plans. You've got to understand where the company wants to go, what they want to portray. So because obviously the customers also are coming to you because they believe the values of your company. And so you have to work in parallel.
And did you ever have any, was that ever like a discussion point? Obviously working for a brand like Ralph Lauren that has this tremendous sort of brand culture and brand persona, if you will. Was there ever a a kind of a discussion point around, you know what, we're not going to do that because it just doesn't fit with the brand. Even if it could work and it could make us more money, it just doesn't feel like it's a Ralph Lauren thing.
Yeah, if it doesn't fit with the brand, then we won't. Yeah, you wouldn't do it, because it's, as you say, it's stepping away from actually what the brand values are. So you wouldn't do it.
Okay, cool.
But you would discuss it. Yeah, you would discuss it and then go, do you know what? We're not comfortable with this.
Yeah, makes me feel a little. So Janine and Kath, have you ever had an experience? Obviously, I'm sure you're both going to agree that company culture is quite important. Have you ever had a situation where you went in and you thought this company doesn't have a culture that can actually will implement this or roll this out effectively for whatever reason?
I think Tracy mentioned this about how resistant people are to change sometimes. And I think there are two bits, particularly when you're talking about the customer journey and changing that. There are people who want to have everything mapped out so clearly, and that all they come back with is, but what about this? But what about this? Or this, edge case here, there, and everywhere. And that that's going to be a longer process. They're going to want to dig into everything, and they're not going to be prepared to do what we've talked about, which is to make that start as quickly as possible and learn, and get the value as quickly as possible. And then you come into other places and they're like, they just want to get started, but they're kind of falling over themselves to just tick the boxes. So you can kind of get both bits. You kind of want someone who's going to take a little bit of time to reflect and have a good think about it, but not they get in their own way in terms of making a start.
Yeah, and I've come across quite a few situations where, as an independent consultant, I've been brought in, and one of the reasons why I've been brought in is because I am neutral, and that's normally because there's a voice, a personality who's literally preventing it. Either it's their baby, or they did it, they didn't want any changes, they take it as a personal insult, or they think that their way is best or something. So that often will happen. And so as an independent consultant, you can come in and you can sort of say, okay, this is it, because there's no, I don't have to buy into any of this, and I can sort of call upon, a bit of, a bit of weight.
Totally get it.
Yeah.
Totally get it. So
I really remember having a conversation with someone after an audit and a presentation that I did when I was working as a consultant for Fidela, in fact. And I remember at that moment having someone kind of pull me over at the end, and they're like, you just said everything I've been saying for 6 months. Why are they listening to you and not to me? And I'm like, because I'm not here in this building all the time. I've come in and they just taking it on face value. There's nothing, they're reading into it. And I completely appreciate how frustrating that can be. But sometimes you've just got to use something like that to your advantage to get what you want to happen.
Exactly.
So true.
So Tracy, do you want to wrap us up with that question? Again, you can always say, no, Sanjit, I'm not answering that. You're not going to get me, catch me out with that one.
No, I think company culture is really important, but then there is also another layer at that when we look at, for example, retail. Because retail, we are representing brands, different brands, but there is also our own culture that we want, like our own values that we also want to promote to the customers. So we need to be able to balance being able to have still respond to the type of culture value that a brand will have, but also make sure that when we wrap it up, it follow the actual company. And again, it will be a question as well as educating the stakeholder, explaining them why we should do this way or that way rather than doing it this way. And then, as Janine mentioned, you're always going to have someone who will be like, yes, but why this or why that? And it's just a question of education. It might be long for some stakeholder and quick for others, but yeah.
Well, I think that's a great place for us to wrap up on, because that's all we have time for. So thank you all very, very much. I'm going to pop in some slides. So please, everybody, join me in thanking our speakers today. Tracy and Sam, thanks for joining us for the panel. Janine and Kath, great presentations as always. Also, join me in thanking our sponsor, Actito, without which we couldn't do any of this. So that's been great. Now, Kath and Janine and I will be back on the 30th of June with Natalie Hutton from Not in the High Street and Jess Evans-Tudor of Rated People. But until then, thank you all for coming. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us, getting engaged in the chat. I hope the weather is still good wherever you are. If it wasn't good when you started it, it's gotten good. I can tell you that my neighbor was not part of the webinar today because I mentioned it was raining, and about 20 minutes later, she came running out to take in her laundry. But we will see you all again on the 30th. But until then, please stay safe and make good choices.